What is the most valuable commodity in the world? Is it oil? Gold? No, it's unavailability. The human brain is hardwired to desire what it cannot have. This is the scarcity principle, and it's been the cornerstone of trillion-dollar industries for centuries. Think about the diamond, the most sought-after gemstone on the planet. Rare? Perhaps. But its true value, its mystique, its power, was artificially manufactured. In the 20th century, the De Beers cartel did not just sell diamonds, they sold the idea of scarcity. They took a resource, and through strategic control, they turned it into a symbol of permanence and high status. They made it unavailable to the masses, and in doing so, they made it priceless. Now imagine applying that same principle, the diamond effect, to yourself. Not through manipulation, but through the cultivation of authentic, high-value resources, your time, your energy, and your presence. This is the deep psychology of unavailability. It is not about playing games. It is about establishing your true worth in a world where everyone is too accessible. In the next 5,000 words, we will dissect the Cialdini principle and show you how to ethically transform yourself from an easily acquired commodity into a fiercely desired resource. The science of scarcity. The journey begins with Dr. Cialdini's 6 pillars of persuasion. Scarcity is arguably the most powerful. Why? Because the brain assigns a disproportionately higher value to things that are rare or threatened with loss. When something is abundant, our cognitive value calculator dismisses it. We assume we can access it later. But introduce an expiration date, a limited supply, a brief window of opportunity, and the brain switches into overdrive. It registers a potential loss rather than a potential gain. This isn't about logic. It's about a primal fear, the fear of missing out, or FOMO. That immediate, anxious pull is far stronger than the slow, rational pull toward a future benefit. When a person is perceived as always being available, always replying instantly, always agreeing, always dropping their plans, they become part of the abundant background noise. There is no perceived threat of loss, and therefore no urgent investment is required from the other party. The commodity trap. The inverse of scarcity is the commodity trap. A commodity is interchangeable. Wheat is wheat. Oil is oil. If you are instantly accessible to everyone, you are, by definition, interchangeable. The moment someone perceives you as a resource that will always be there, they stop fighting for your attention and start taking it for granted. Our scarcity is defined by the depth of our intrinsic value and the firmness of our boundaries. If you have an abundant, purpose-driven life outside of any single relationship or professional pursuit, your time becomes the scarce resource. You don't have to pretend to be busy, you simply are. This is the psychological shift we must embrace. Value is amplified by the perception of limited supply. We move from asking, how can I make them want me, to how can I make my life so valuable that my time is inherently restricted? Focus on the psychological mechanisms, loss aversion, and FOMO.
The neuroscience of want. The power of scarcity lies deep in our neural circuitry. Behavioral economics tells us that the pain of losing something is approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. This is loss aversion. When someone is difficult to reach, or when their commitment is not guaranteed, our brain begins to calculate the potential loss of that connection, that opportunity, or that individual's presence. The act of pursuing a scarce resource, whether it's a limited edition sneaker or a high-value person, is less about gaining the item and more about avoiding the pain of its permanent absence. This is why strategic unavailability is so effective. It prompts the other person to invest. Investment is the true driver of commitment. Investment and commitment. Think about the time, energy, and mental effort someone must expend to secure your attention when you are a scarce resource. They have to send a second text. They have to adjust their schedule. They have to consciously think about when and how they will interact with you. Every single one of these efforts is an investment into the interaction. The more someone invests in something, the more valuable they perceive that thing to be, simply because they have already committed resources to it. The sunk cost fallacy. If your time is given freely, instantly, and without effort, the other person has made zero investment. Zero investment equals zero perceived value. Case study: the fading signal. Consider the fading signal technique in relationships. An individual who is initially available, but then gradually introduces purposeful, non-manipulative unavailability by focusing on a new hobby, career project, or friends. The shift is subtle but noticeable. The other person, used to instant access, now experiences a microdose of loss. This triggers the loss aversion mechanism, and they begin to chase the former level of access, not because they suddenly value you more, but because they are trying to avoid the loss of the predictable, available connection they once had. The key is that the unavailability must be authentic, driven by a real, valuable life. If they perceive it as a game, the whole structure collapses, and you are rightly seen as manipulative. Establishing the critical ethical boundary between strategic scarcity and toxic manipulation.
The ethical divide. This is the most crucial part of mastering the scarcity principle. There is an enormous ethical gulf between strategic unavailability and intentional manipulation. Manipulation, playing games. The individual possesses no true value, but creates an illusion of demand. Their unavailability is fake, designed only to inflict pain, trigger insecurity, or gain control. This is fragile and corrosive. Strategic unavailability, high value. The individual possesses genuine, constantly improving value, pillars 1, 2, 3 in Part V, and sets natural, healthy boundaries to protect that value. Their scarcity is a byproduct of a rich, purposeful life. The difference is the intent. A high-value person limits access because their life demands it. A manipulative person limits access because their ego demands it. The necessity of boundaries. Setting boundaries is the practical language of scarcity. Your boundaries communicate your value before you ever have to say a word. The guarded calendar, not immediately accepting the first proposed time. You are communicating that your schedule is full of other important priorities. The delayed response, not replying immediately, especially to non-urgent matters. You are communicating that your focus is on a deeper task, not waiting for external validation. Saying no gracefully. Declining requests that drain your energy or don't align with your purpose. You are communicating that your time is a premium resource and is not to be squandered. When you consistently enforce boundaries, you force others to respect your schedule and, by extension, respect you. This respect is the ultimate form of high perceived value. The intrinsic value prerequisite. Scarcity is a multiplier, not an initiator. If you are boring, unkind, or lack depth, being difficult to reach simply makes you a boring, unkind person who is difficult to reach. Scarcity only amplifies the value you already possess. Your primary focus must always be the continuous growth of your intrinsic value, mastering a skill, cultivating deep relationships, pursuing intellectual curiosity. When you are genuinely valuable, your limited time transforms from a game into a prize.
The expert versus the generalist. The scarcity principle is most clearly monetized in the professional world. In the economy, we are either a generalist or a niche expert. Generalist. They are abundant. They can do many things moderately well. They are easily replaceable, and their rates are always subject to competition. They are a commodity. Niche expert. They are scarce. They solve one specific high-value problem better than 99% of others. Their time is non-negotiable, and their rate is high because their skill is rare. The shift from generalist to expert is the professional embodiment of the scarcity principle. When you are the only one, or one of very few who can deliver a specific outcome, you transform your time from an expense into an essential investment. The AI threat and the value of deep work. In the age of artificial intelligence and instant information, Google, ChatGPT, the abundance of basic knowledge has hit critical mass. Information is no longer scarce. What is scarce? Deep synthesis, the ability to connect disparate ideas and draw unique conclusions. Unconventional problem solving, applying human creativity and intuition where AI cannot yet tread. Human trust and empathy, emotional intelligence in leadership and collaboration. These are the new scarcity resources of the modern professional. By dedicating your limited time to cultivating these deeply human and specialized skills, you create a natural, unshakable form of professional unavailability. You aren't avoiding meetings. You are engaged in work that only you can do. Building professional mystique. In business, perceived scarcity can be built through strategic actions. Curated visibility. Don't post everything you do. Post selectively. Let your work speak for itself through rare, high-impact contributions. Setting the standard. Be known for exceptionally high standards. People will assume you are difficult to reach because your work demands it. The waiting list. A busy expert signals high demand. A waiting list, a booked calendar, or a requirement for specific qualifying criteria are all powerful psychological cues of scarcity. The final actionable pillars for integrating authentic high-value scarcity into daily life. The final architectural plan. True, authentic scarcity is not a tactic. It is the natural consequence of having a high-value life. It rests on three non-negotiable pillars: purpose, boundaries, and mastery. Purposeful life, the independent orbit. You must have a life of your own that is compelling, fulfilling, and independent of any external validation. If you do not have a strong orbit, career, passions, hobbies, health, you will constantly gravitate towards seeking external attention, making you instantly available. Action. Dedicate 70% of your emotional and time resources to your life's purpose. Result: when you are not instantly available, others will assume you are engaged in something more important, which inherently raises your perceived status. You will no longer be chasing. You will be doing. Intentional boundaries, the gatekeeper of energy. Boundaries are the immune system of your high-value life. They define what you permit and what you reject. They are not built to keep people out, but to keep your focus in. Action. Practice the 1-hour delay rule for non-urgent communication. Define specific, deep work hours where your phone is completely silenced. Result: you teach others how to treat you. You are communicating that your energy is a precious resource that cannot be taken lightly. Mastery, the unshakable foundation. This is the fuel that makes the scarcity principle run.
Mastery is the constant, ruthless commitment to improving your core skills and knowledge. The more you master, the more unique your perspective becomes, and the more scarce your expertise is. Action. Commit to 1 hour of deliberate practice on a core skill every single day. Read 2 books a month in your field. Result. Your value is no longer a matter of opinion. It is a demonstrable fact. Your scarcity becomes a consequence of your competence. Mastering the art of intentional unavailability. The greatest irony of the scarcity principle is this: you cannot become a desirable commodity by focusing on others. You must become a desirable commodity by focusing entirely on yourself. Stop trying to force attention. Start investing in your own orbit until your light becomes so bright, so scarce, and so valuable that others must expand real effort just to be in its presence. The chase is over. The pursuit begins with them. This is not a game of withdrawal. It is a life of purposeful presence and strategic absence. Go build the life that makes your time a genuine, high-value commodity.